That's good, our end. Excellent. Okay, let's go then. So, podcast number 3 tonight. We've got Torquay United ladies on the agenda. We've got lots to discuss. We want to go through many topics tonight. But before we get started, if you could just introduce yourselves, tell us your roles at the club, and that'll get us all ready to go. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Go on, Matt.
Go on, Matt.
Matt Green, assistant manager of Torquay United Women, and also girls coach within Torquay United Community Sports Trust, and a lead on the under-12s.
I'm Grant Fisher. I'm the manager of the football club, although not for a great deal of time because lockdowns occurred, but I oversee the senior side of the club, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it so far.
I'm Sasha. I am a centre midfielder for Torquay, currently captain as well as part of the team for just a bit of a season, just because COVID and everything. So, yeah.
Gemma, and I'm right back for Torquay. Haven't been here for too long, just a couple of seasons.
Brilliant stuff.
Really.
Ideal. It's always awkward, isn't it, when you're trying to talk about yourself. So we're delving into it then. So I'm going to come on each one of you. So it's sometimes what I realised doing these before is sometimes I might mute you just if there's a little bit of interference. So if I feel that sometimes you get the weird noises on the mics. So just sometimes just make sure that you might have to unmute yourself because I can't do it this end. All right. So I want to just talk and get us started then on your experiences since you first entered the female game. So if we can start with Grant first on this one, because I think he's got some experiences from years back, and it'd be nice to know the differences. So Grant, if we can start with you, mate, and just explain to us and the ones that are listening that where it started for you in the female game up to now, mate.
Okay, so essentially it was the age of, what am I now, 29, 24 years old. I was still playing as a senior player at Buckland, and I was undergoing my coaching badges at the time. It was my B licence, and I got approached by a group of ladies who, funnily enough, had been let go by this club, Torquay United, who were looking to play football, and they asked me to essentially ask the football club if they could start a ladies' club at Buckland. And from that, I said, "Yeah, of course I will, no problem. No, it's not a big fuss." And then later down the line, it comes to the conclusion that they had no manager, they had no players apart from the 5 or 6 that were there, and they had about a month before the season started, and quite frankly, got shoved into the position. Thought, yeah, do you know what? Why not? Let's give it a go. I got my B licence, and I needed some coaching hours. I needed to do some work, and I thought, let's give it a go. And I got chucked in. We most definitely winged it for a couple of months, but we managed to get a club up and running off the ground. And I'm not going to lie, I was blessed with the amount of talent that we managed to start off with. And everyone will know our history, that we dominated women's football for a couple of years, especially in the lower tiers. But without doubt, we had some incredible talent on the football pitch. But what kind of, I think, was clear to see, Chris and everyone who's watching, is that we didn't actually make a huge amount of additions over this period of 4 years. We worked with the same sort of nucleus of players over a number of years, and we added a couple in 2 years later, and then we kind of added 1 or 2 a season. And apart from when we benefited from Exeter's time, a little bit of suffering, we signed every player from lower tiers of the women's game. A few names, obviously, Abby Mayer was one of them. She was down with Playmore Ladies, and Sarah Stacey was playing in the Division 1 up in Gloucester. We never had the attraction of Plymouth, Torquay or Exeter, really, because we wasn't a professional club. And we built a wonderful football team, without a shadow of a doubt, that was very successful, but also very together. And we had a real good understanding of the game because of so many years together that we'd built up. So obviously from there, we went on a good journey, and unfortunately come to an end 18 months ago. And I was sat doing not a lot, twiddling my thumbs and thinking, well, how do I get back into the game? As you know, Chris, there's not a huge amount of opportunities in the southwest of England, especially in Devon and Cornwall, for coaching. When jobs come up, they're very few and far between. But instantly, upon Torquay's position becoming available, I was super keen to talk to Matt and the club. And Matt called me on a Sunday afternoon after they'd just played a game. And I believe Monday we was in a hotel, is that right? In Torquay. Was it the Monday, I think, wasn't it? Something like that?
Yeah, it was the Monday, yeah.
Yeah, and was it by the Tuesday? It was by the Tuesday I was installed as the manager of Torquay United Women's. Taking on, no doubt, an incredible challenge and a different challenge from what I first took on. From building the club, now I've got to come in and try and rebuild this club in a different way, because there's more than enough players there's more than enough talent, but the club's not been in a hugely successful place for a few years. And so far I've loved it to be back in it, and not that I'm working with what I think is an incredibly gifted, and in a different way, the potential within the squad is actually genuinely brilliant. It's the fact that, in my opinion, they haven't received yet the right guidance to bring out the potential in their players. Because if we go a little bit early, there's the younger players coming through now are technically far better than what I had at the start of Buckland, but they haven't been taught the game of football. That's what I see as a real difference. But I'm over the moon to be back in this football club, and let's see where the journey goes, because I think there's a lot of legs in it, and I think there's as you'll find out over this call, we've moved the club forward tremendously in the few months that I've been at the club already.
Brilliant, mate. I'm definitely coming back to some of those bits that I want to know the differences between, like you said, that the technical ability now seems to have changed quite a lot, which is great. So I want to really go back and try, and you've got the real bonus of being able to look at both sides of the coin from earlier on to now. So I want to definitely come and check that out again a bit later on. I just want to go through the others. That's brilliant. Cheers, Grant. Matt, over to you.
Yeah, that's a hard one to follow, by the way. So cheers, Grant. My journey in girls and women's football probably started about 4 or 5 years ago. My daughter, my eldest daughter, who was probably about 5 or 6 at the time, just took to playing football. My background was always football. I played through the youth ranks at Torquay and things like that. So I didn't sort of force her or anything, but she just seemed to enjoy it. So I took her along to some training sessions. She got involved with the Community Sports Trust at Torquay. And I got asked to sort of, as you do as a parent, when they know you've got a football background, asked to, would I join in? And I said yes. Went through and did a couple of my badges, which obviously I want to progress. Obviously, once lockdown is all sorted, and really went from there. Got involved with the Community Sports Trust, doing the under 10s, under 12s, 14s, and then Jamie McInnes, who was also manager of the women's team at the time, asked if I'd take on the under 12s, under 11s at that point. Which I did, which was a great experience, something I really enjoy doing, really enjoy teaching girls of that sort of, age, the basics and the fundamentals of the game and the enjoyment side, most importantly. It's not about winning at that age at all. And then somehow got involved with the women's team about 3 years ago as an assistant with Jamie. Jamie obviously moved on temporarily, so I sort of held the fort for a little while. He came back, and obviously, as we all know, with the club, with the women's team over the last few years, it's been a difficult period. This season didn't start off great. We won our FA Cup game, but we lost our 2 opening league games. Jamie decided to move on, and we have to thank him for the work that he did while he was with us. And we had to find a new manager, and I was asked to have a conversation with a few people, and the rest really is, as Grant has said, is pretty much history. So I stuck around as assistant manager to Grant. I've enjoyed the journey that we've been on, interrupted obviously by COVID so far. Put a lot of legwork into behind the scenes at the club, as Grant will probably allude to maybe a bit later on. But moving it in a positive direction. We've got aspirations to move up the leagues. That might seem a bit far-fetched maybe at the moment in our current position and what we've done over the last few years. But yeah, it's an exciting time to be part of this football club and where we want to take it. And like Grant said, we've got some fantastic players. We've added a few over the last few months. But yeah, there's some really positives that are going to come out of this football club once we get back on the pitch and playing.
Brilliant, mate. Ideal. That's one of the things, and I'm sure we're going to cover it all tonight. But that's one of the big things for me is understanding how the trust has a sort of pathway into that, which we'll come on to hopefully later for the girls. And I presume, and what I'm finding out myself is, which umbrella is it under? Very similar to Plymouth, is it more the club? Is it more the trust? So we'll delve into that later, because I think that's sometimes a real support compared to maybe a standalone club, which you don't get that support. Potentially, maybe. We'll find out later. Yeah. Who wants to go first, girls? Gemma, you on? No? Sasha?
All right. I don't really know how to start it really, because
let's just go from when you first started playing. When was that? How old were you?
So I probably joined a team at the age of 6, which was the Dawlish local team, boys. I carried that through until Matt Hodgson made a Dawlish United girls team under 12s is when I started them, and then from there I still played with the boys but played with the girls as well. And the difference between them were obviously girls weren't supposed to play football in a way, type of sort of thing. So having the experience with the boys at a young age obviously gave me that step ahead. But it also helped me see a difference in why boys are, in a way, the people who need to play the football. But with playing with the girls, it's all about that development of we can play it. And then from there, I stuck with the girls, left the boys, because obviously you got to that age where you weren't allowed to play with the boys anymore because of your age, and the physicality was just obviously very different when you get older. So obviously stuck with football for definitely. Went through to other teams like Devon, Southwest Centre of Excellence, which obviously pushed me to my limits and showed me what I could potentially get out of all of this. But obviously, when going through all this, I've had like injuries which have put me down, and that physically and mentally can put you down, especially as a girls football player, not really having a load of support, because it wasn't as big girls football, so you only had like the people around you to help you out with what you could pretty much do. So you know, and then started with lockdown, the first lockdown last year. I was out actually before with my knee injury, and then I got an ankle injury, which then massively made me question, am I able to go forward? What can I do? And it was the likes of a friend who actually plays for Torquay, who was like, come join our team, you know. And that's when I got in touch with Jamie and Matt, and was like, I would like to join your team. So thankfully at the start of when, well, halfway after lockdown last year, was finally eased, and I managed to get in contact and be at training, was when I knew, like, this is probably, I knew definitely that this is what I want to do. But after having so many injuries and doubts, and if I can go further, Torquay it's helped me through what I can definitely achieve.
Brilliant. So a nice fit then. So only got to look forward now then, surely.
Yeah.
Stumbling blocks done. I'm sure you'll be fine. You're in good hands. I'm gonna question you a little bit more about the playing with the boys and playing with the girls later, because that's one of the big things that I want to see what your thoughts are, whether or not that's going to change in the future. Gemma,
yeah.
Last but not least.
Hi. So I started actually playing when I was 4, but only like really with my older brother, who played football for a club, but I never really had the opportunity to go to a boys team because there wasn't really a lot around my area. So I just went kicking about with my brother up the fields, and then when I got to the age of 9, there was opportunities for me to join a girls team in Pinho. So I did that and stayed with them for a while, and then I went to Westex for probably about 5 seasons, which took me to the end of youth. And then there was a bit of a barrier because the gap between youth football at 16 till ladies football or women's football is very big, and it's a massive step. So I kind of stopped playing a little bit, and then there was an opportunity to join a under 18 side, which helped me grow a lot. And then when I was at college and went through the Exeter Sports Academy, which gave me a lot of experience through football. But I also, like Sasha, had a bit of a step back with an injury. I actually broke my L1 in my back, which set me back massively. So to overcome that with, like Sasha said, little support, you just had to kind of push yourself through those barriers and determine yourself that you can overcome it and you can become better and physically stronger. And then I started, after that it got to women's football, so I set at a local women's team in Exeter. It's called Exeter and Tedburn, and I was there for a couple of seasons, but I knew I wanted to be better and physically stronger, but that club couldn't really give me that. So I looked around, and that's when I found Torquay. And then since then, like, I had loads of like experience. It was all coming through. Like, Jamie helped me through a lot and taught me quite a bit. And then Matt came through, and the opportunities since then has been massive. Like, it's grown. So the 2 seasons I've been there, it's actually grown quite a lot. It's quite mad how it overcome, really. Now with Grant coming in, there's a lot more to it as well, which is good.
Brilliant, mate. Great stuff. It looks like, and I'm only taking obviously from what the girls are saying, but it looks like most of them are trying to find somewhere where they can then push on again. So it sounds like if they're all like that, for Grant and Matt, then you're laughing, because if they're all wanting to push on and they're good players to start off with, it seems to me like they're all raring to go, which is great. So that's going to bring me on to and Gemma's point there, and we spoke about this with the other ones, is that if there's not anything in place when they get to 16, that leap from 16 into the women's football for me is huge. And and I mentioned in the previous ones, the post-16 program we do at the school where I work at, even getting them in there training every day, that leap is very big for most of them. And even the ones that are good for their age, you know, you alluded to it already, that there's some good women out there that the standard is high. And I think a lot of people that don't show any, I was going to say respect to it, but it is a little bit of respect to it. A lot of people don't even want to look at it. For me, people just look at it and say, well, it can't be that great. And then when you go and actually delve into it and watch, and I think many people will be surprised, but a lot of them just can't be asked to go and look. So the jump's huge. So if I can come back to the coaches, whoever wants to start, Matt or Grant, what pathways are put in place? It might be something that's in already. It might be something that you are doing now as your new step forward. What's out there for the girls? And obviously talk about your club first, because you're going to know more about that. And then, and yeah, just what can they do when they get to the younger ages?
Right, I'll just start off, just because obviously I've probably got a couple more years sort of from the Torquay point of view, and then Grant obviously go through from his side. But when I joined the women's setup probably 3 years ago, there was just the first team, and you're right, the jump between sort of leaving an under 16 team and then going into a women's game is quite massive. So it was clear for me that there needed to be some form of pathway, some sort of link. So as a club, we have got the link with the Community Sports Trust, obviously, and the girls, and it helps with me sort of coaching and that setup as well. So that's a massive sort of bonus for us moving forward, because, you know, we invite the girls of those sort of 10s, 12s, 14s, 16s to come and watch our games. You know, they don't have to pay, they just come in and watch the game. So they can get that connection with the women's first team. So they've got that aspire to you know, get to that level and play. You know, they see us all in the tracksuits and things like that, which is you know, another massive bonus from, you know, psychologically. You know, they get all of those sort of, you know, perks and things as you go through the different age groups. But the start of this pre-season, we ended up having, astonishingly, about 30 ladies turning up for training of all different ages. So from 16 through to senior players. You know, you're got to be careful what I say, but, you know, your 30s, etc. And it was quite apparent that we couldn't just have one first team, because, you know, 20 odd players wouldn't be playing. They'd be training, but they wouldn't be playing. So at the 11th hour before the season, sort of the league's sort of affiliation was signed, we decided to put in a development team into the Devon Women's League Division 1. So starting right, obviously, at the very bottom of the local leagues. And that really enabled those 16, 17, 18-year-olds that had joined the club to really get experience of playing women's football. We did think, well, we're doing under 18s at that point, you know, just to obviously do friendlies, but there's no substitute for competitive games, as we all know. So we took the decision as a club to have that development team, and yes, COVID and lockdowns have sort of, you know, hindered that, but we've now got 2 teams. You know, if you're not in the first team, you know, you play in that development team, because obviously we're lucky that we can do that with the leagues that we're currently in. I know that the likes of Plymouth, you know, can't have their development their first team players playing in their development league because of the league situation. So at the moment, we're in a really good position where if players are playing well in that development team, both myself and Grant will obviously speak to the development manager. You know, and if they warrant a shot in the first team, and we've got players that aren't playing well, then you know, we'll move them in. So as a club, we've got the pathway with the Community Sports Trust through the youth, and then we've got that link now where we can have your 16, 17, 18-year-olds that, you know, physically might not be ready, is probably the best way of describing it, for the first team and the league that we're in. But they get the opportunity to play competitive and develop their skills. So I think that's really important, and that was something I wanted to put in place for the last 3 years, and we finally sort of got there. You know, and it works really, really well. Going into next season, myself and Grant have already discussed about having an under 18s team, and also looking at the possibility of an under 16s under the women's umbrella, rather than obviously under the Community Sports Trust. So lots of things in place, and which is why it's a really exciting time to be part of this club.
Brilliant. No, it's good, because I think without that, you're just always going to have girls just drop off. And for me, the girls are mentioning it there, you know, they're nervous anyway. So if there's no pathway, and the last thing you want, and we spoke about this with another one, is where it's great to have role models and it's great to look up and be around it. But if you know that you're just a token gesture to sitting on a bench and you know you're never going to come on, the likelihood is they just walk away anyway because they want to play. So finding that level to play is great. So how do you think going forward, surely that's beneficial to you, Grant, in being able to move them? I was really shocked, and you just mentioned it there, Matt, and it just shows how little I know, that I was shocked to hear that Plymouth couldn't go up and down like you guys can, because for me that's perfect. That's what you want, surely, as a manager. So how does that work for you, Grant, being able to, injuries, young girls, experience, etc.? How has that made your life a lot better?
So from my point of view, I'll speak from Torquay's point first, Chris, but as you all know, I've got an under-16s girls team as well that I still manage, and
yes,
we play in a fully boys league. Yeah, but we have a fully girls side. So I would love to be able to tell you also and include that in the chat, because
of course,
how people will see it is just phenomenal. So from my point of view in this club right now is that firstly, I was absolutely taken back when I went to my first training session and there was like 40 something women training between 16 and 30, whatever Matt says, however old they are, because I had never seen that even at Buckland. Like, we was with 14, 15 players maximum every season. So straight away I thought, wow, where have all these women come from? And straight away I realised something I always knew at Buckland anyway, is that this badge, no matter what, counts for something. And the first glaringly obvious thing, and this is not in Torquay, is that girls football at under 18s is let down. Yeah, from the county FA's perspective, from some part the clubs have to play in it as well, because there is now enough teams at an under 18 level, because at under 18, don't forget, you've got under 17, under 18, there's 2-year gap in it, so you've got the kind of there would be enough scope to have a midweek league for under 18 women. They were quick enough to do it for boys. They were quick enough to get it going for everyone else. But again, mate, there's also a letdown in the girls' system where they're playing 9-a-side till they're under 16. At under 16s, they're playing 9v9. So how on earth, mate, as well as the physical differences, okay, you will never have the technical aspect of playing 11v11, the fitness aspect of playing on 11v11 pitch, and they play in smaller goals, I believe, as well. Yeah. So how on earth do you expect, because potentially if someone turns 16 in December, they can play women's football in December. So you've not only got to transition into a different way of thinking, now you're going from a girl to a woman in football, you've also got to basically teach them the game at 11-a-side, which, not being disrespectful, that's some people, that's a tough change. You're playing half a pitch to a full 11-a-side pitch all of a sudden. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? You know, how on earth do you prepare someone? So here you go. This is what I'm chucking at you. You've got to play against a woman who might have been playing this league for 5 or 6 years. You've got to play an 11-side pitch. You've got to play, let's take a right back. You've got to play with 4 defenders now. You've got to play with another 4 people in front of you, and you've got to play with 2 forwards. Alongside that, you've got to learn how to throw the ball properly. Because let's be honest, that's not coached very well or taught very well either. You've got to learn all the different spaces that are going to occur on the football pitch, but you've got to do it with 3 points at stake.
What do you think? Because it's interesting you say that, because I used to see games out here, and I think it was Greg who'd done Playing More Girls, and it was under 16s, and
Yeah.
And I genuinely thought that it was 2 teams had turned up with less players, let's play 9-a-side. And then realised, no, that's what we do. And it shocked me, and I'm glad you're talking about it, because to be fair, it hasn't been mentioned up to now. Because what is that reason then? Because as boys football coming through, under 13s 9-a-side's done, and then they move into 11-a-side. So you've got all that progression.
Yes.
Who's making those? Who's making those calls to do that?
So you asked Devon FA, it's because of participation. They're saying that teams struggle to get 11 players every week in girls' football. So keeping it at 9, it allows every team to fulfil their games with 9 players, because that's what Devon FA's viewpoint of it is. Whenever I've asked the question, is that there's not enough participation still at that age, because girls drop off for whatever reason, or they're not quite there to fulfil an 11v11 game.
But at training at Torquay, you had nearly 40 people wanting to play.
Yeah, it's chaos, mate.
So there's girls out there wanting to play, isn't there? Definitely.
And yeah, I mean, I'll say how it is, because I don't want to be anything different than that, but I see them move with the boys all the time. So if the boys need a midweek league, they set up a midweek league, because then if they can play the first team on a Saturday or whenever they've got to play, or they want to play in their Sunday team, so they set a Wednesday night boys league up for them. Yeah, if there's 10 under 18 boys team, I have no doubt they'll set up an under 18 boys league this week, for this season coming. But also, us clubs have got to keep banging the drum. But maybe we've banged the drum so much we've given up. That's how I feel, because I don't think Plymouth would object to an under 18s league. I don't think Exeter would object to it. We certainly wouldn't object to it. Don't forget we've got Yeovil, who are now Bridgewater. They confirmed today that are up there, that are within our proximity. There's definitely some good sides down in Cornwall that could get to it. I'm not talking like right down the deepest depths, but like Salt Ash and other clubs. There's North Devon, Bideford, they've got clubs. There would be enough clubs to get 6 or 7 under 18s teams together to have a competitive schedule of games, which would allow under 18s to have 1 11-a-side football, 2 in a more controlled way.
With hopefully the transition into the women's game being a bit easier.
And then when you get to 18, the transition, you play 2 years of 11-a-side football, and then you can step into women. You're a bit older, you're a bit more developed, you're a bit more physically advanced to where you need to be. And don't get me wrong, Chris, what I do, boys and girls, everyone develops differently. So you might get a 16-year-old girl who is a woman already. Yeah, and you'll step out there and they'll take women's football like a duck to water. But you also know that there are some brilliant players who never get a chance at first team level or senior level because they're always physically behind. And then they end up going, I'm leaving this game, get me out of it.
Definitely. And to add to that, whether it be midweek or whether it be obviously the weekend then counteracts against the women's stuff. But there's also, I mentioned it, I do a post-16, South Devon do a post-16, Exeter do a post-16, Bridgewater do a post-16. So there's girls out there at that age. Say again, sorry.
Tommy's starting to do it at Mount Kelly as well, down at Mount Kelly College.
So there's more and more doing it. So there's definitely girls out there playing. So it's not a case if there's not enough. It just might mean that it needs to go back under their banner on top of their college program, like the boys do. I get it. So So with that in mind, because I think we're not accepting it, but we can't change that. Like you said, it's a Devon FA or FA ruling that if you beat the drum, like you said, and nothing happens, you can only do what you can do, I presume. So the pathway you've got at the club, and like you said, is you've got your stuff as well that you do, and the girls have come through, and you've got younger year groups as well. Getting that next bit right, do you think that's key? That it's under your banner?
It's ginormous. Right? We live in a different world to men and boys. Quite simply, we have women playing football in this game are playing because they want to play football. There is no monetary value in it. There is no other alternative. Sasha and Gemma are sat there. You heard this. They're here playing football, and most of the time, it's costing women to play football in any football club at most levels, apart from the top level. And the only way you build a continual player pathway is by building the best player pathway you can. That means getting them at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And it's not about battling the other side of the club. It's not about battling the trust. It's not about battling anyone. What it's about is that we need a distinct pathway and a distinct route into the women's setup. Because at the moment, there are players that might play under the trust which have got aspirations to be elsewhere, or they've got a second club, if you like, which can happen, obviously. At Buckland, as you already know, we set about a youth system 1 year after being a ladies' football club. You know, we started with under 12s and 14s, and, you know, and then we put a pathway in place because, for me, you get a child at 10 under your banner, under your club, and you keep them until they're 16, you've got a much higher probability of keeping them in your first team. Because ultimately, that's what we want to do. We're hoping that all these girls that come under our youth banner, ultimately, their aspiration is to be Torquay United women's first team. But if they never know who I am, never know who Matt is, never know who our women are, then how can we expect them to want to come and play for our football club? So there has to be a continual pipeline of players. And Matt knows my view on this already. My primary thing at this football club is to have a pathway for girls. So they can start at 10 and they can finish at 40 and never have to go anywhere else to look for a football club ever again. You know, because hopefully we fulfill all their dreams and ambitions. Because don't get me wrong, there'll be some that will be ready for our football club at the 13 level, and there will be some that may only reach the development level. But that is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, with our club and how we're structured now at the senior level, we aren't just saying there's an opportunity for the talented players to play in the first team. Actually, there's an opportunity to play in the Devon League locally as well. You know, and I think that's super important that we're not cutting it off at you've got to be a good enough player for the first team at 16. You know, we're saying, look, yeah, do you know what? If you've got the ambition to be a first team player and play South West Women's Football League and hopefully the National League in years to come, then we've got that for you. But also, if your ambition is to play in the local Devon League, we've got that for you too. And I think that is really super important to keep the pathway open, if you like. We're not just saying, here's your pathway, it's like this. We're saying, here's your pathway, you got here, and you can go here, and then you come back to here, and you can go back to here, or out to there. You know, it's about giving all of the female players the biggest opportunity that we can. And you look at men's sides, again, you know, some men's sides have got like 3 or 4 teams for that reason. They don't want to cut anyone off of their club from the pathway. You know, and we're very much of the same mindset, is that the youth is the future of our football club.
Chris, can I just jump in and agree with everything Grant has obviously said? One of the key things is, you know, we're a small area. You know, you have got, you know, a lot of clubs. You've got, you know, Buckland obviously, and Exeter and Plymouth. You know, just to name a few. We're all sort of pulling from the same pool of players. You know, at senior level, at adult level. And that's why it's important for both of us to have that youth sort of coming through, because, you know, we want our own players to come through eventually. Yes, at the moment, you know, we have to go and look elsewhere and things like that because of the age ranges. But I think it's really important for every club to have their own, you know, pool of players coming through. I'm sure the other clubs would agree as well, you know, so that we're not having to, you know, put 7 days in for a player from another club to strengthen our club, etc., etc. So it is massively important that all clubs get that pathway coming through, in my opinion.
I think as well, because we touched on it in the previous episodes, that one, if they don't have that, you get the fall off anyway. And two, if you're never doing that as clubs, all you're doing every year is trying to chop and change and take players out of other teams. So for the progression of the female game, you're actually killing it, because all you're doing is disrupting competitive and social teams that want to progress. And all you're doing is trying to snatch out away. And I've seen it myself now, you know, every year for many reasons, you know, girls will change and you think, well, why aren't they moved on? It's because they just seem to change every year. Similar faces go around. And if you've got nothing to help below that, I think that's going to keep happening, isn't it?
And that's no different in the men's game to a certain part. You know, players, as we all know from men's football, you know, chop and change. You know, you might be at Tiverton, you might go Bideford, you might come down to Stoke Gabriel, you know, Liverton, whatever it might be. So, but you have to be able to bring your own players coming through. And with the girls that we've got, you know, I'm talking from a coaching point of view now, from the Community Sports Trust. You know, we started off probably 3 years ago with, I don't know, one team with 15 players. I think that was about under 12 age group at that time. You know, we've now got an under 10s, 2 under 12s teams. You know, we could have had 2 under 14s teams, and we've got under 16. So there's enough girls that want to play football out there. They've just got to be given the right development pathways through to come into the adult game. So, you know, that is our plan. That's what we want to do as a football club. And as you know, as long as myself and Grant are involved with the women's team, that's the pathway that we want to produce moving forward.
Brilliant stuff. I just want to bring the girls in. Girls, whoever wants to come in on this one. You obviously are privy to this anyway, but obviously you've heard what the plans are if you didn't know that. How do you find that as players? So we've had a little look at where you got to where you are now. How does that look as a player that coming through, that you've got those different opportunities? You've both mentioned injuries. Let's be realistic. If you had those injuries playing in the first team now, and then you're coming back to fitness, the likely it is you're not going to be in and around that first team while you're coming back. So now that development gives you another opportunity to come back and get your minutes in. So how do you think that benefits you as players, that you've got these other pathways that will benefit different levels coming through? Who wants to
I think it's very beneficial, because like you said, we're as Torquay, we're lucky enough to have that development team. And as Grant has said and Matt has said, since Grant has started, having that development team there, if you have an injury, that is fine. You go back there, you work on your fitness, you work on strength and conditioning, and you work your way up again. Yeah, it is a setback. And obviously, as much as it's going to be a physical challenge, mental challenge, if that is your determination to get where you want, having that development side is so beneficial to pursuing what you want to be doing, playing football, having a love for the game. So having it there is just amazing, because not many teams have the development side where you can sit back on it and you can, in a way, take a sit back. Okay, what am I doing here? What am I needing to do to be even more physical than what I was before this injury that has set you back? So I think it is very, very, very important to be able to have that, and it's grateful because not many teams have that opportunity.
Brilliant stuff. Fantastic so far, by the way. I just want to look at this, because this is something that when I talk about the trust and where it sits under what umbrella, and hopefully you can speak about this. If it's stuff you can't speak about, then I appreciate that, because each club I'm talking to, each setup is very different. So I take the two that I've spoken to before. Buckland is a club where it's run by the club, and when you look at it, they've got some boys teams by the sound of it, some girls teams, they got 3 adult teams, they got the women's team. So they might have aspirations to do other things, but as that club, where does it fit into? Is there space? Is there venue time? You know, I see so many girls teams that are attached to clubs that are then playing 20 minutes down the road somewhere at a different club, because their club that they are wearing on their badge doesn't have room or doesn't want them there. And then I look at Plymouth, and I'm sounding from you guys as well that the Plymouth trust seems to be very separate to the boys in the club. They get the support by the sounds of it, but then they have their own venue for the girls on a separate night. The Astros theirs. They get their facility to use for games. How does it sit with you at Torquay? How does it sit alongside the club? Is it anything to do with the club? Is it anything to do with the men's? Is it purely the trust, or is it going to become a standalone? How does it work? And
Matt, do you want
me to answer this one, Grant?
Well, you take the lead. Yeah, I mean, I'll...
So, as the women's team, it is a complete separate entity to the football club, to the men's club. Okay, so I think the perception of lots of women's teams that have professional men's clubs that they are, we get everything from the club and they give us kits and they, everything like that. But that's not how it is. We do get, some benefits from wearing the badge and obviously the name. And we have had conversations with the football club, but we have to be a separate entity. We have to be self-sufficient as a football club ourselves, so we have to get our own sponsorship that comes in, and the players have to try and get sponsorship for themselves. So from the club point of view, we would love, to be playing at Playmore and things like that, but obviously that's not possible at the current time. So we make sure that, we have our own sort of committee. We make sure that we sort ourselves out with everything, with the tracksuits and playing kit and things like that, and venues for training. The club did allow us to use Seal Hayne for a little while, but obviously when that gets to darker nights, that isn't possible. And for everyone that knows Seal Hayne, it hasn't got the best drainage system, so even the men's team train away from Seal Hayne. So that, we are separate. We are a separate entity. With the Community Sports Trust, yes, we have got more links, purely really with me coaching with them, and obviously Jamie before Grant came in, obviously leading on the girls front from the Community Sports Trust. So we have got that link in there, but yeah, I think it's common across most clubs, that any team has to be self-sufficient. Any team has to be able to run your own finances and make sure you're balancing the books and things like that. And it is a challenge. It is difficult. The 3 years that I've been involved, it definitely is hard. And again, we're all looking for the same sponsors, aren't we? We're all looking for businesses locally. We're looking the same as Buckland are looking, the same as any club around this area are looking for. So yeah, it's a tough one to try and achieve all the time, but you have to do it. The players pay a monthly fee if they haven't got a sponsor, and that helps us pay for training facilities. So yeah, I think you touched on it, Chris, a second ago about venues. There's not enough venues around. There is not. You cannot find a venue where you can get like a whole night where you could run, your youth teams through to your development, through to your women's team, etc., etc. It's just an absolute no. We're all trying to get 3 Astros in the area. The one at TA, South Devon College, Painting Academy. We're all looking for those venues, and we all want them on a Tuesday or Thursday night from 7 till 9. There's just not enough time and not enough space. So it's tough. It's hard. But yeah, we all have to do the best we can and go from there.
Would you say that do you think that's more beneficial to be standalone? The reason I say that is because conversation we had the other day was through no fault of the women's game, there's obviously a lot more established boys and men's teams out there. So if you're attached to a club, you are you going to get the same training slots? Are you going to get the same space? We were talking to a club the other day where when they first started, they were put into a corner of an Astro because yes, you got training tonight with your girls, but you're in like a 20 by 20 area. Do you feel that by not having to run alongside the boys, that you're not in competition, that you can go and create your own pathway rather than be told what you can and can't do?
Me personally, I think it's a good thing. I think it's good that you can have your own pathway. You can do that. Yeah, I don't see any negativity around that. You know, the brand that we have, you know, is our main asset. You know, like Grant said, a lot of players want to come and play for the club and the badge and things like that. So, you know, the brand of Torquay United Football Club is huge in the area, and that's why the women's team should be a successful club. You know, too many seasons it's been sort of sleeping, as you could say, and we have to work a way of getting that. And with the package that we've now got, with Grant obviously coming in to drive that from a senior point of view, I think is really positive.
Brilliant stuff.
Can I have my spin on that?
Go for it, mate.
We all want to be loved by a club, right? Regardless. And there is a clear defined line between being self-sufficient but still being the club. And yes, of course, there are benefits, negatives and positives to both sides of the coin. But do you sometimes want an arm around you and say, we're so proud you're part of this football club? Yeah, we all do. We all do. We all want to feel that and a part of a family and the warmth and the love from the football club, because Torquay Football Club is very much the heart of this town for a lot of people. And we walk around wearing their badge and representing Torquay United Football Club. So, yeah, from that point of view, I'm going to leave it as this. Can a lot of men's side of the football clubs, or football clubs in general, do more for their women's teams? Yes.
Massively agree. And I think you're being very good at how you put that as well. I do believe that's why I was alluding to it a minute ago, is it best to go and stand alone? You guys obviously never would want to do that, because you hit the nail on the head, Grant, that badges for pro clubs in the area will always sell and will always get people to come there. You have just got to make the product right and make sure that you're doing everything you can. And it sounds like you have changed a lot of that when they had their dips a couple of years ago, and you're back out, and you know it's all positive. And I think you're right. You know, do you want the people to only give you a pat on the back when you do something amazing, or do you want their constant support? That would be nice, wouldn't it? Perfect. I want to look at and I don't mind who goes on that, and I appreciate Gemma. I haven't forgot you, by the way. All right. What if you could just think of one real crucial point to the female game that you think there's a gap that would develop players? What's missing? I know we've touched on some bits already about the 18s. We've touched on, you know, is there enough girls out there? Where are they going? Are we working together? Because I think Matt said it, and I totally agree that the job that I do and the job that other colleges do, Grants, we alluded, and again, please expand on it, Grant, if you want to, but the girls that you have in other places, they're fantastic girls. They're good players. There's teams down that play at Aspire, I think, is another good one that I know of, that some of the girls locally play. There's some fantastic girls out there, and then you get the likes of me, you get the likes of South Devon, you get the likes of Exeter. We all want those players. So we're doing our bit to go, please come to our program, because we think that we are the fit for you. In an ideal world, we want to keep them together, but we've all got our jobs to go and do. So because there's not enough girls out there, and I said this in the other podcast, what tends to happen is then you might do a fantastic job with yours, and you've kept them together for however many years. Where do they all go now? Do they all go one place? Do they all then go, do you know what? Wherever I live, I need to go college here. I need to go sixth form here. And all of a sudden, something that you've built great for 4 years, we're then going to go and have 2 here, 2 there, 2 there. And you probably then won't get them back again because you don't have that 18s. Do you know what I mean? So we still got to do our job, but that's my opinion. I think that kills it. I think that we don't have enough girls to be able to do that and warrant their development, because we're splitting them up again. And I don't know how to get around that, because colleges are never going to work together. They got to do their own thing. What would you guys say that is missing for the development of girls going forward?
What about if we let the girls speak first, see if they've got an opinion?
Come on, Gemma.
What do you think is going to be good for? What do you think girls need moving forward? What would be one thing that you feel that if any club could put in place to help the development of girls, what's it going to be?
I don't really know personally, but my thoughts are that in the boys' game there's a lot of like local support. But in the women's game, you go to a game and there's not really a lot of support from like the local community, and like if you go to like a women's game professionally, there's not as many fans there as you would if you went to a men's game.
What do you think
Like,
can
to
change
me-
that, Gemma? What do you think could help with that?
Like daily, the women's game's growing anyway, but a lot more like promotion for women's football and a lot more support from, like you said, like their men's clubs.
Hey, what about this one? Hey, Chris, you live in Torquay, don't you?
Yep.
How many times have you seen the Torquay women in the back of the paper next to the men?
Well, I was just about to allude to that, is that we can only do so much, surely. We can only do so much, but there's other people out there that could do a lot for the game. And there's one, because again, the badge you're wearing on your chest is Torquay United, same as in Plymouth. You know, they follow their local professional teams. So why don't they put it out there? It'd be what, a couple of paragraphs every week? Would that help massively?
Is it because we got to wait for us to be successful?
Or is it because they don't feel that it's warrants their time? Yeah.
Right. But as far as I'm concerned, more people read what was previously the Herald Express, which is now, I'm not sure what it's called now. Is it the Torquay Weekly or something like that?
Mm.
More people read that in Torquay than the Sun or the Daily Mirror. Yeah. And why on earth are the men getting this massive, great big spread and we can't be spared a column? Because that's something I would love to ask the people to be. Because I've never been contacted by a newspaper since I've been at this football club. And I have to be honest, at Buckland,
yep.
Yeah, I got contacted by a newspaper every Monday.
Yep.
So Teambridge are supporting their club. Torquay, it's not happening.
Do you think that goes down back to what we mentioned earlier, where they do look at you as a separate entity because the club doesn't talk about you? And I'm not just saying you, it might be Plymouth, it might be Exeter. Yeah. You know, it seems to be a lot of internal energy that, and you've mentioned it earlier, no one's getting paid, you know, a huge amount of money to be doing what you're doing. So for me, it's everyone I talk to, and I'm delving more into the female game recently more than ever, and it's really insightful, but also like some of it's shocking, as in what doesn't go on.
I think one word can sum it up: recognition.
Recognition and respect of what the game is. The game's the same.
All the women, you know, and like I say, in the 3-4 years I've been involved in women and girls football, the amount of effort that goes into training, the amount of sacrifice that goes into Sundays and game days and things like that, and, you know, Zoom meetings and lockdown sort of sessions and everything else, it's the same as the men's game. It's no different.
Except we are voluntary.
Yeah. There's no money. There's no money.
It's the recognition that needs to be there for what these women and girls are doing. Any club, you know, not just our club, but, you know, Buckland, Plymouth, Exeter, you know, wherever. All these women deserve the recognition that for the efforts that they put in. It's no different, and it shouldn't be any different. Do you know what I mean? It shouldn't. It
shouldn't be, and I think it's a simple solution. I mean, just tagging people on these podcasts when I'm trying to do it on social media, and you're trying to tag the different, like, you know, Torquay United ladies, Torquay United girls, Torquay United football club. You just see from there the amount of followers and the amount of, you know, the jump is huge. If you look at how many people are following Torquay United, obviously on Facebook, and then you find Torquay United girls, one post on that Facebook for thousands of people compared to the hundreds maybe on the page of the girls can mean it could be mass exposure, and that's the same at other clubs as well.
I will say one thing. Grant probably isn't aware of it because it happened before he came into the club. But during pre-season and maybe the first week or so of the new season, we did get on the podcast. So Torquay United's, I think it's their Yellow Army podcast, which is done by the Herald Express, Richard Hughes and
is it Dave? Isn't it? Is it Dave?
Can't remember. Guy Henderson.
Guy. Yeah.
David Thomas was doing it, but I think he obviously moved on to pastures new. But we did get on that, and that did give us that exposure. It was only sort of a 10-minute, 15-minute slot within an hour podcast, but it did give us that exposure, you know, and we were grateful, you know, for that. But yeah, it's you know, we would like some column inches in the local papers and bits and pieces when the season gets back underway.
Brilliant. We just lost Grant, by the way. I don't know where he went. His battery might have gone. Guys, amazing. I want to just get to these last couple bits, and I'll keep an eye on, make sure that I can let him back in the room in a minute. Couple of bits that I just want to finish on. I will come back to you if there's any bits we missed that we might have, you know, want to say at the end. Money is obviously a huge thing. Sponsorship, as you mentioned, Matt, we're all trying to get money out of people that at the minute don't have it for a start, and also such a small area, we're trying to all find that person's willing to put their hand in their pocket. So, and we're also looking at the women's game as a whole, that yes, a lot's gone on in 10 years, but money would be amazing. So I want to take money out of the equation. If you could just give me one thing that you'd like to see change, and so not about the development, just about the game in general. What one thing apart from money do you think would be a massive help on top of what we've just mentioned already?
Go on, girls.
I think as the girls like younger ages getting a lot more popular, I think definitely, as well as it being primary school, secondary school, colleges, I think definitely primary school and secondary should promote it a lot more, give the girls a bit more guidance. If that's where they want to be going and continue to do, why aren't schools helping and promoting that to the young girls? I feel like I definitely was like, this is what I want to be doing. Football is just this is what we're going, but I didn't know where I was going. I was literally in this one little block, and I'm just like, where am I going with this? You know, you're just stuck. So I think, okay, at primary school you can be like, I want to be this, but like in 5 years' time you're doing something different. But is that because you don't know what you're doing? Is that a thing primary schools and secondary schools could be doing differently? Is by helping and supporting people to actually fully understand what you've got to get through to be in a position where you know what you're doing.
Brilliant. Gemma?
I think like the boys have a lot more facilities around them to support their game. So I think like women's football could and girls football could have a lot more facilities for them to train and for them to have more age groups. So like in the age group gap, there's actually a few missing in most areas. You go from like under 9s to maybe like under 12s, like the under 10s and under 11s are sometimes missing. And I think the facilities would help that. And like Tasha said, like the schools, like when I was in school, there was always a boys team in every single year group, but for a girls team, there wasn't one. So to help promote the women's game would actually make it a lot more better.
I think that's a huge thing in it, is that one, support of schools. And I was saying to someone the other day that primary school teams, they always have a big, massive tournament, and there's so many girls playing. Then they go secondary school. And I appreciate there's other sports, and it might be that you got other ones that take your time. But yeah, I think more schools can definitely do more, but also more schools, I think, need to know what's out there. And I think we go back to that bit again, recognition of understanding what's out there. That is it beneficial to go to a girls team at Torquay United or at Plymouth or at Buckland rather than be the one girl that's dotting around clubs because you don't quite feel like you're fitting in because you're having to go a boys team here, and then it gets a little bit more physical, like you said earlier. You know, I think that we can do loads more schools, and I think we need to signpost better. Because let's be honest, quite rightly, you know, how many boys do you speak to and they say, I want to play football when I'm older? You know, should that be any different for a girl? If a girl comes in and says, I want to play football when I'm older, surely we need to signpost them to where they need to go out and get more of that, surely. So, no, brilliant, girls. Grant, I don't know what happened when you're back in. So all we're recapping on, mate, is apart from money, and I just got you and Matt to come up, apart from money, and I know we mentioned a few bits about their development of girls, but what thing would you like to see change for the benefit of the female game? So it could be anything.
First, sorry about that, mate. My internet went down. Got gift gaff, so it goes down every now and again.
No problem.
Okay, so for me, mate, and I don't ever want this to sound disrespectful to anyone, but I think we need better coaches. I think we need coaches that can develop female players, and not in a way to disrespect what people do or how much time people give to football clubs. But I mean, Chris, tell me if I'm wrong. When people are aspiring upon their coaching badges, doing B license, level 2, A license, etc., how many people do you come across that say, I want to work in the female game?
We covered this the other day, and do you know what I think I see more of? And I got to feel like I'm not seeming like I'm doing that as well, because I'm really interested in the female game recently. I've known about it, obviously, but recently I've really delved into trying to find out more about it. What I do find, and someone mentioned it the other day, is it seems to be now that people don't want to go into it, but they maybe want to use it as a stepping stone to then go into men's. So they think that it's an easier task to maybe do it at women's level to then go into a men's environment. And that was mentioned to me the other day. And
Right.
I thought maybe that's the case. But yeah, how many are going, yeah, my pathway is girls football, female football? You're right. I don't think many.
Not just that, how many ex-professionals, I mean, female professionals is becoming more and more prevalent now. They're getting more and more involved in the game. But how many more, like, for instance, yourself, myself, I didn't have a glittering male career, but I still experienced academy football. So I went through all academy football all my life. I went under an apprenticeship. I had a professional contract. I played in different countries. I played under Neil Warnock, Colin Lee, big personalities in our game, in the men's side of the game. But I've chosen my pathway as the female game with an A license and with the experience that I've got behind me as well. I don't see many other guys like me who want to put themselves in the female game and want to keep growing in the female game. Like, I generally have an interest in managing the Women's Super League. Do I think that's going to become harder for me with years to come? Yeah, I think, because they want females to be managing at the higher level, and rightly so. So may my route have to change upon a decision of not myself? Yes, it might have to. But I don't come across many ex-professionals with their badges coaching women's clubs, nor the junior levels either.
No, I think you're hitting, it's a good point, definitely.
When you go into junior boys, even like Torquay as a club, they're not an academy as such in the JPL league, but they will have minimum UEFA B licensed coaches who have maybe played a bit of football in the past, coaching their boys teams.
And normally a couple of them as well per team.
That's what I mean. Why aren't they coming to the women's side or the girls' side and saying, let's do this side as well? Because does it enhance the growth of a young player? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Does it help with the pathway and progressing them in football? Yes, it does. And like you said earlier, it's one game. The ball is still round, the post is still rectangular, the picture still has white lines, and we still have a referee, and we have exactly the same rules and laws as the boys and men. So for me, that's where I think we could all be better. And listen, there is not a financial gain in it right now. There's not. But we've all got a responsibility to young players, female or male, to try and help them fulfill their potential. That's my view.
Spot on. Last but not least, Matt.
I always have to follow Grant when he's done an amazing little piece. I'm going to keep it simple. I think I said it earlier anyway, but recognition and probably an even playing field. Like Grant just said, it is one game. It's a game of football, and I'd love to see women have the same recognition. Whether that's in Super League, Championship, National League, lower leagues, etc. Just have that same recognition as the men do. I think we're on the path to that. The Super League, that's come in over the last 10 years. The Super League's been there. I think that's done a lot. I think the national team, the women's national team, doing well. I think that's done a lot. And obviously, there's more female pundits that are coming into the game as well. And I think that's good for the women's setup. So. Recognition is a massive thing for me.
Hey, Chris, as well. Can I just mention one last thing on that? Is that, and it will be quick. Is that many people will know the name Laura Goff around this area for sure. That woman must have scored more than 1,000 goals in her career. I bet hardly, because if someone done it even in the South Devon League in men's football here, we would all know about it.
It's that recognition again, isn't it? Is it
Mate,
worthy of a story?
100%. I mean, we have got really good female players here, like really good. And it's really tough, and without doubt, she was one of our best I think we ever had in Torquay for sure. Playing in Torquay. And hardly anyone would even know who she is, mate, other than, a few people who follow women's football. But to score over 1,000 goals over a career of however long it was is a remarkable achievement.
Definitely.
And I've got Kate Hine playing with us now at Torquay. She's 41. But, and she's still playing this game. But who knows that? and she played for England as a young player coming up through the colleges and that. She's got, if you ask her, if you ever get to catch up with her, she's got a programme of many, many top names that we all know about. And she's right on our doorstep.
I think it's recognition in it, and Matt's hit the nail on the head with that. I've been having some real good conversations recently with Sarah Lawler, Natasha Mills, that girls that are down here to try and help, pathways into the England setup. And there's girls, I heard about a couple of girls down Ivy Bridge. I'd never heard of them before. How do we not know if they're on the England pathway? How do we know that, how do we not know, sorry, should I say? If that was a kid at our school or another school where they're on, an England pathway, under 14, under 13, it'd be in the paper, it'd be bigged up. So something's massively missing, isn't it? And for the two girls that are on here, you must be sick of not getting the recognition, because you're having to fight harder than a lot of the lads out there anyway. And when you do something amazing, it's like a secret. It's like people, unless they're in it, they don't want to know. So no. Have I gone for everyone there, by the way?
Yeah.
Chris, I'll say one thing, and it might be a different podcast. You might want to pick up, but
there's plenty more to come. Don't you worry about that.
When will we see women coaches or women managers in the men's game?
Well, this brings me on. It brings me on lovely, because the final question now, and this might come up, because obviously I've set this up as a future player network, and obviously this is the podcast, and I'm trying to just get people talking. But I've looked at it as whatever we're doing, whether that's analysis, coaching, whether that is scouting, it's all about trying to make the future better. So we're talking about here, you've put some outstanding stuff in place at the club where your dream is to get 10s all the way through to women's, because it's about the future players. So with that in mind, the final one I want to finish on is, what does a female player look like in 10 years? What does it look like in 10 years? The future. And it might be that, Matt. It might be that.
I'll kick off by saying what I just said then. You know, will we see, you know, women coaches, women managers in the professional men's setup? You know, will there ever be a phase where women's players can play alongside? Do you know what I mean? Probably not in 10 years' time. But something I'd be really interested to see. You know, we all want more women coaches and more women managers within the women's setup, 100%. But yeah, I'd be really interested. I don't know, has Emma Hayes recently had something like that about going into the men's game? I think that was well publicised.
Yes.
So yeah, I'd like to see that. I really would, and I'd like to see it sort of maybe sooner than 10 years. I don't think it should take 10 years for that to happen.
Same qualifications, isn't it? There's a lot of A licensed coaches out there and pro license.
There you go.
Exactly. Next. Go on, Sasha. You look like you've unmuted. Go on.
Well, in a way, the future is such a massive thing. Anything could happen from now to next year, like this year, pandemic. But I think as a player, for future players, they're going to be more determined to get that recognition, to be able to, you know, support more girls up to go through this. We're going to be physically on there, like as men's, you know, they're obviously known as being more of the tougher physical, but I generally think the future of women's game and girls' game is definitely going to be more determined, more physical, and mentally it's just going to be off the scales, I reckon.
Brilliant, mate. Gemma?
I think for women to have a lot more like opportunities in the game. So like for the men's game down here, you've got like the Exeter City Youth men's that go into then the men's who are actually in the Sky Bet 1 league, that then they get paid. Women's don't really have that opportunity to go into that far, like especially down this way. It's so much harder and so much more work to actually become a professional as it is in the men's game.
Spot on. Thank you, mate. Finally, finish off with Grant.
Okay. How do we get better future players? Education. So you heard there from 2 female players of ours that have had injuries over the time, and anyone who knows about women's football is that women are far more susceptible to knee, ankle and hip injuries because of body makeup and how they are formed within their bone structure compared to men. So how many coaches and how many women's clubs out there are doing knee, ankle and hip strengthening exercises, programs for their women and female players? Question mark. Because let's be honest, we don't have the most formidable access to healthcare, physios, doctors that other men's sides will have. So their rehab is always much more difficult to overcome, which means let's get preventative action in place to stop this happening as frequently. Because by doing simple exercises, you can actually reduce the risk of them being injured by nearly 60%, which to me is a huge number for doing a little bit of homework on women and female players. We do, by the way, we've got a wonderful woman called Claire Williams who works with us from Winners 2000 and on a voluntary basis who puts plans together for all of our women. So we are very fortunate and we are very grateful to her for what she does as a football club. We're very fortunate to have that. So education is one. How do we get better future female players? Is we've all got to educate ourselves much better to help every female player who's developing. What is a future player going to look like? We're going to see a lot more Fran Kirby's, Nikita Paris's, top athletes. I think you'll see superior athletes coming through because from a younger age, girls are getting better support now. And you mentioned some players out there at young ages. There are some really good players at young ages, especially they've got a couple down in Plymouth, and I feel like we've got one here in Torquay. And mate, they're athletes. They are serious athletes. And alongside that, they could do more stuff with a ball than I could do at their age. And we will see top players in 10 years, no doubt. You will see, I think you will eventually see scholarships and apprenticeships come into play at top clubs. I don't think it will even take 10 years. I think it will be shorter than that. And does it need to happen? Yeah, 100%. Because if all the top clubs had the responsibility of, if you're a professional club, of having like an academy system like the boys, I mean, how much better would that be, bridging the gap between 16 and 18 again for those players who are aspiring to be a professional football player? If we've got apprenticeships and we've got the same setup as the boys, where you've got apprenticeships, leagues and stuff like that. I mean, surely that solves a huge problem, especially as an elite talent performer. That's a big tick in my box. Because Chelsea have got the money, Man United have got the money, Man City have got the money, every club's got the money. It's just who wants to take the lead and do it. Because we all know what happens. Once one big club does it, everyone soon follows suit.
Definitely.
But I think we'll see. I think in 10 years' time, people will be seeing it as a lot more equal game and a lot more equal playing field for sure. Will it still get the interest of the men? I'm not sure from a fan's point of view. But will we be much further forward? Absolutely. And on Emma Hayes, by the way, I've had the pleasure of seeing her work, and she's as good as any male manager I've ever seen. So yeah, I'm super positive, man. I mean, our young talent that's coming through, even in our area, is wow, it's super exciting. Super exciting.
Happy days. If it goes as quick as this 10 years, improvement would be away. It'd be amazing. Amazing. Guys, listen, I've taken plenty of your time. We're up. I keep trying to get these to an hour, and every time I get 1 hour 15, 1 hour 20. So I don't know. I've got to get it sorted, don't I? I've got to get it sorted. Listen, it's been amazing. Hopefully I appreciate your time. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you got bits across that you wanted to. I will definitely be coming back, Matt. I want to be doing more. I don't want to. My aim is to do different topics, obviously every month. But I know that it's just with this, and I know that obviously I'm in the middle of it. But just with this, it gets people talking, you know. And everyone's got opinions, and everyone's doing great stuff for their clubs. But for me, it's about just people knowing what people are doing, because it sounds like you are doing a lot of things, but a little bit like what you alluded to earlier. How much of what you do people know about? And all your hard work that you do, and all these other clubs, surely we want to support and help that in any way we can. And if we can get more girls in and more girls on your pathway that are going to end up playing female and staying in the game, then surely that's what we want, yeah. So
yeah, 100%. And Chris, just from all of us, thanks for the time today as well, because really appreciate that. And yeah, we're fully supportive if you want to get in touch with us and do more things. 100% count us in.
Definitely. Brilliant, guys. We'll wrap it up then.
Chris. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Speak to you all soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.